Hello, it's Alex and welcome to Hey Little Thrifter. I'm back with another Nightmare Queens video where I talk about vintage horror written by women, and today I'm going to be talking about Rebekka Moon by Michele Spence. Rebekka Moon by Michele Spence was originally published in 1983. The title character, Rebekka, is a 16-year-old girl who lives in this small town known locally as The Branch. And she's the outcast at school. She's a bit weird looking, she doesn't have any friends, people pick on her, and she also happens to have some strange power and she's able to do things to people. So you might be thinking, that sounds a lot similar to Carrie by Stephen King, and on the very surface it does have a similar basic premise, but really I would say the books are very different, and even the power that Rebekka has, it isn't telekinesis like Carrie. Rebekka's power is more of a form of hypnosis where she is able to control people and bend them to her will. And she is wielding this power over the people of the town. Some people become kind of like her slaves where, you know, she's able to make them do certain things to benefit her. Other people just kind of meet their demise at her will. So after a prologue to kind of set the scene, we are introduced in chapter 1 to our protagonist, a psychiatrist called Laura Holland. She grew up in The Branch but moved away to the big city and has pursued her psychiatry career, and after a particular incident there regarding one of her patients, she is advised to take some time off, and she decides to go back to her hometown and visit her father and just be able to take some time off work and kind of recoup. So we have that classic character moving back to their hometown scenario, and she is spending time with her father, who she is kind of somewhat estranged from after her mother died some years previously. She is meeting up with an old friend who she used to be really close with growing up, and they still kind of keep in touch but haven't really seen each other frequently. And she also meets a guy who becomes something of a love interest. So yeah, there's a mixture of things going on there. Shortly after Laura arrives into town, there is something that happens at the local high school and a teenage boy dies, and she starts to look into it because she has some thoughts on what might have happened in her, psychiatry experience. And her old friend is actually a teacher at that school, and she persuades Laura to kind of come on board at the school for a limited time and help out as something of a counsellor and give her something to do while she's supposed to be taking time off work. So Laura becomes aware of some strange goings on in the town and eventually attributes it to Rebekka, and becomes aware that Rebekka has this special power, and it's very strong and it's getting stronger. And Rebekka has a plan for the townsfolk, and now of course Laura is also part of Rebekka's plan. So we have this really interesting concept of kind of hypnotism, or some form of that, being used as a weapon by Rebekka. And then we have Laura, the psychiatrist, who has experience with using hypnosis to try and help people. And it becomes something of a battle of wills and who is the more powerful in that arena. And when I say a battle of wills, it's not in the sense of, the two of them are there using their mind control against each other or anything quite like that. It's definitely much more subtle and believable, in fact. It is a bit of a slow burn. It's more of a slower paced story overall, and I will say there were a couple of times when I felt it got a little too slow, it just kind of lost its momentum a bit. but it was still a really great read overall. I think she's a really great writer. Definitely I could see a confidence there in her writing, and yeah, sometimes with kind of, you know, obscure 80s horror paperbacks, you know, there were so many books coming out during that time period that, yeah, not all of them are going to be great. So this was, yeah, a really nice surprise, that I think it really lives up to the amazing cover, and yeah, it was just a really well written story, some really good characters, and yeah, Rebekka Moon is a really fantastic character. I absolutely loved her because she is all sorts of crazy, and I loved it. And while I say this is a bit of a slower paced story, it does have some really great gripping moments where, you know, Rebekka's story comes to the forefront and things are happening with her and other characters that she is involved with, all of which, you know, are kind of leading towards her ultimate plan for the townsfolk. And yeah, I will say I think those moments with her character were some of my favourites of the whole book, and yeah, some of them got a bit gnarly, which was really cool. In fact, I will read you a short passage just so you can get an idea of that. Okay. Rebekka could feel him cower, as though her finger had reached through his eye socket and into his skull and touched the grey softness of his living brain. She thought of it lying there, like an offering on a white butcher's tray. It writhed and recoiled, and she imagined a point deep within and thought about her finger wriggling its way into the grey flesh, invading an orifice of her own creation. And that's not even the best part of Rebekka's whole story, but just a little teaser for you. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was an excellent read, really well written. Rebekka Moon is a really, really great character to read about, and yeah, I just loved it overall. I rated this 4 stars out of 5, and it's definitely one I would recommend checking out if it sounds interesting to you. Unfortunately, this is a title and author that just seems to have been kind of lost in the mists of time, which is really sad because, yeah, I think this book is a really great one. I think this is an absolute hidden gem. I checked on Goodreads, and yeah, before leaving my own review, it only has 9 ratings total and only 2 reviews. It has an average rating of 3.56, so yeah, not bad, but yeah, it clearly hasn't been read by many people, or at least many people that then went to leave a rating or review. And you know, I get it, this book was published some time ago, so it's not one that many people are going to be reaching for, I guess, but I am really glad that I did. And yeah, it's just kind of sad that something as good as this has just been kind of lost and forgotten about. So if the premise sounds intriguing to you, if my review piques your interest, then I absolutely recommend tracking down a copy. I think you would have to track down, you know, the original, one of the original paperback editions. I think there is another edition with a different cover, but yeah, absolutely go for it. I definitely recommend it. And unfortunately, I couldn't find out anything about the author, so she's kind of a mystery. She had one other novel published called Shadow Play, which was her first novel, Rebekka Moon being her second. And yeah, I think Shadow Play is also something of a creepy kid story. So I am absolutely going to track down a copy of that and give it a read because, yeah, she's a really solid writer. And yeah, there's always the possibility that Michele Spence is a pen name for someone else who has written other novels, you know, just published under a different name. So who knows? Michele Spence could even be a guy, you know, like, I have absolutely no idea. Michele Spence, who are you? So those were my thoughts on Rebekka Moon by Michele Spence. A really great example of 80s horror, and yeah, a real hidden gem amongst the books of that era. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video.